Alright, so Shakuhachi and breathing. Breathing feels really good, doesn't it? Especially when you let it feel good. It feels very good, I think. And, I do, in addition to Shakuhachi, I do Gregorian chant. I like to sing the Psalms in the morning and the evening, and sometimes while I'm working. And whether it's Shakuhachi or Gregorian chant, there's something that those deep breaths have in common. Because you kind of have a short in-breath, you wait for a minute, and then you have a long out-breath, and that naturally happens, of course, when you're singing, and it's also very appropriate to the Shakuhachi. And that has a psychological effect that's been scientifically documented, that just kind of, it calms down your autonomic nervous system, so your heartbeat kind of starts to slow down, your tension starts to eventually melt away, and when you're singing the Psalms, for me, that it changes your attention too, instead of the busy thoughts that are going around in my mind start to melt away, and I start to, the words of the Psalms start to come alive, and they go into my heart and they come out of my heart. It can be a really good experience, and I think that for the Shakuhachi as well, as your breathing kind of settles, and as you stop worrying about the sound you're making, whether it's good or bad or anything, you start to make a very honest sound that's always beautiful. It's beautiful even when it's ugly. And that's an important thing. It's important to love the ugly parts of yourself. So when we breathe in a, Edo-style Shakuhachi, which I'm saying specifically, I mean Shakuhachi that is for prayer or meditation rather than performance. I think there's been musical performers in the Shakuhachi world, even in the Edo era when it was like an instrument for monks. There was still, the people whose names we know now were famous because they were good performers, basically, They had a sound that was entertaining to people in some respect, and other people wanted to imitate it, and that's not a bad thing. But the Shakuhachi that I'm concerned more with is the kind of Shakuhachi that is played by most of the people whose names that you don't know, or making Shakuhachi, and some of them were bad people, right? What's a bad person? I don't really know the answer to that, but some of them were also people who genuinely were looking for something true and desired personal goodness, wanting to be able to love people right. I think that there were people like that. So what were they doing? That's kind of my life's question, because, well, really, it's what am I doing, So when you're breathing, you're not blowing the shakuhachi. In Japanese, we say shakuhachi o fuku. You blow shakuhachi. That's just a generic musical term used for flutes. Same for saxophone. You fuku a saxophone. You fuku a trombone. You fuku a trumpet. Anything that's a blown instrument, you blow it, right? But it's important not to get too caught up into that. With a modern shakuhachi, that's true. You blow it. The reason is they have a really deep cut here, and you're trying to make volume. And you're trying to set up a really powerful resonance within the shakuhachi, so you're going, and you're kind of using a lot of power there. With meditative shakuhachi, historically speaking, most of them have a very shallow cut. You can see this. I mean, that's what this is a shakuhachi that I made, but you can see it's a cut of only about 1 millimeter or maybe a half a millimeter. And lots of Edo era shakuhachis that I've seen also do the same thing. The effect of this is that it makes it so you don't have to blow. You especially notice it on longer shakuhachi, but it's true for shorter shakuhachi as well. You're basically just breathing. It's close so that you can make a rich and resonant sound just with your breath, without blowing. And it's not like a wishy-washy breath. It's a strong, it's a gentle but confident breath, right? It's very stable. It's coming from your abdomen. And that's just kind of letting air leak out a little bit. And you can hear, whenever I make videos, my sound is a little bit nervous. I hate performing. I like playing alone, and I like playing with other people. I've been doing concerts and stuff for 10 years, but I still I don't know. I found ways to enjoy that too, but what I like the best is just playing myself and playing with other people. That's the best thing. And I never feel nervous then. So one thing that one of my teachers, Dr. Yamada, talked about is there's an old kind of philosophical treatise on breathing in the Buddhist repertoire of things. And they talk about taking an in-breath of three counts, stopping for 2, and then an out-breath. For 25 seconds. All right, so that seems long at first, and most people can't get it at first because they're blowing, but when you learn to just let the air leak out a little bit, it's a really relaxing breath, and at that rate you've got about 2 breaths per minute, right? If that's too hard, just slow it down. I make it a little shorter, 20 seconds per breath instead of 30 seconds or something like that. That's one way to practice. The other thing about this sort of shakuhachi is that if you blow them too strongly, they won't work. When you have a jinashi shakuhachi that's made in an older style, in an old style of shakuhachi, we don't do anything to the bore so much. Modern jinashi shakuhachi, they kind of open up the bore at top and they smooth it out and everything to make it sound like a modern shakuhachi, right? With older style shakuhachi, you can't overdrive them. You can't really put too much into them or else the sound will break up. The reason for that is you've got all these kind of, in Japanese we say dekoboko, right? Kind of concave and convex areas. They're not perfectly smooth and they're not perfectly tapered. And that's what gives them an excellent tone color. So it's a trade-off. You don't get the volume, but you get the amazing tone color. And that's a really special thing about older shakuhachi. As a result of that, though, you can't put too much pressure into them. It's just about breathing, not blowing. A nice gentle breath can make all those sounds. The other important thing about your breath, though, is where it's coming from. When you blow out a candle or something, right? Take a candle here. When you blow out a candle, it's usually more of a chest breath. You can see I'm used to breathing the other way, so you saw my hara moving, right? So it's hard for me to do a chest breath now because I'm used to not doing that. But generally, that's what we do. But your hara, your abdomen, is what's really doing the work. It's a full-bodied breath from your abdomen. So it's kind of like what you're doing is, if you can picture like a balloon or a big empty thing in your entire upper body. The trick is you want to let the tension out of every area. Think about, just feel the back of your throat, right? And your throat, your mouth, even your lips, and down here, your chest area should be open. And when we're playing at first, lots of times we start to hunch over. If we're concentrating too much, it goes like this. We get tension in our chest, and that's why we stop making a sound. You want to relax that. Let it be open. Let your body's muscles hold your body up, right? The trick to letting the tension out of your upper body is to actually put a little power into your abdomen. It's like all the pressure and the tension from your upper body kind of sink down into your abdomen, and then they sit there, right? Because that's kind of like the ground of your body, especially when you're sitting down. It's like everything sinks down to the ground. And you can let that happen with your out breath. You can feel everything melting out, like butter melting down your body. It's just kind of melting down and it's sitting down in the ground where it should be. And that helps you to take the pressure out of your upper body and play more enjoyably. It's not something that's kurushi. It's not like it's causing suffering in your body. That shouldn't happen. Now there's another thing that I want to talk to you about with breath a little bit. In terms of the abdomen, different people teach different things, so this is not an absolute thing. This is just, if this is helpful for you, I found it really helpful for me. And this is again what I've gleaned from several different teachers and older books that I've read, which is that Shakuhachi breath is often called, some people talk about it as reverse abdominal breathing. But there's actually something different that's just called maybe Shakuhachi breathing. The idea is that your abdomen is always out. It's out on the in-breath, it's out on the out-breath. Okay? So for most people, the most natural way to breathe is when you breathe in, it expands. When you breathe out, it comes in. And that's just fine. If that's comfortable for you, that's good. But what Shakuhachi breathing does for you is it kind of brings your attention down here and it helps you relax your upper body. So when you breathe in, you press out. Then when you breathe out, you press out again. It's kind of counterintuitive, but and of course, naturally, towards the end of your breath, it'll come in again a little bit. That's not something you have to worry about. But as you do that, what's happening is, number one, it helps you open up the abdomen and takes some tension off your diaphragm and lets that move a little bit more freely. That can open up some of the tension that you're holding in your abdomen, some of the kind of emotional tension that can happen there. So that's helpful in a lot of ways. It also gradually teaches you, as you focus down here, it teaches you to reduce tension in your upper body. So again, that just keeps melting down. To the abdomen. And I mentioned before that it sounds counterintuitive, but actually it's not. There's what's his name? Nakamura Akikazu has a couple of books that he wrote about breathing in the Shakuhachi and about harmonics and this and that. And in one of those books, he wrote just about this always out breath, right? And what his explanation of it, I don't know if it's like proven or anything, but his explanation was that people used to wear a kimono in Japan, right? When you're wearing a kimono, you have an obi that's like a belt that's seated right here under the abdomen, right? So if you think about that, if you've got this kind of support here, it's actually pretty natural to have this always out breath. And his idea is that, again, it's not written about specifically so much, but that's probably because it was almost a given for everybody who was playing. It would actually be quite natural to breathe, to have your abdomen sticking out on the in-breath, of course, but also to let it stick out on the out-breath, because you've got that belt there supporting it. And it's kind of a natural way to do things. So there you go. Most techniques and tricks happen by accident anyway, and maybe that's how this one happened. But it's a very helpful way to play Shakuhachi. Let your tension go out of your eyes, your face, your mouth, your lips, the back of your throat, your chest, and down, 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 down into the bottom of your abdomen. And of course your lungs are here, but your diaphragm is here, right? Your diaphragm is the seat of, it's something that you cannot control on purpose. And it can be the seat of a lot of tension. I notice that when I'm concentrating too much on something, or when I'm around a lot of people, it's my attention goes out to everybody. I'm kind of like just always naturally scanning and seeing like how are people doing, what's going on, and that can be horrible for me because when I'm around too many people, it wears me out. And I notice that my breathing starts to get more and more shallow if I'm around too many people for too long. So I try to remember to breathe deeply, but I also realize that if I kind of get out of that situation a little bit or change my way of thinking, so I'm just kind of enjoying all of the chatter around me as sounds instead of meaningful language, it helps me to see that in a way that I can kind of relax and breathe deeply again. So hooray. I hope you enjoyed that.